So it's new piece of legislation, the Calorie Labelling out of home England legislation that was actually agreed in July 21, but actually comes into force on the 6th of April this year. And a bit like Natasha's law, there's no lead-in time. It's everybody has to be compliant from day one. So this legislation is currently only mandated in England. It's not mandated for Scotland, Northern Ireland or Wales. They've got some ongoing conversations, but and ultimately, they'll probably all sign up to variations of what the legislation sits at. So that's quite important to note, that it is only mandated in England at the moment. The detailed guidance is obviously online, but I'd just be a little bit wary. The government have made some changes to it, so if you looked at it a month or so ago, I'd have another little look at it. Some of the wording has changed and some of the terminology definitely has changed, and the way that they looked at how it's going to be implemented. Well, there's several reasons why it's been introduced, really. Is part of the government's obesity strategy. It's also hopefully intended to improve customer choice. So in this age of wellness and well-being and people trying to make better lifestyle choices, they believe that if you can see exactly how many calories in that are in a dish, that you're more likely to opt for a lower calorie dish. But also one of the main aims is to reduce food waste via portion control, or again, it may well be that it's seen that certain establishments may reduce their menus because high calorie products are not serving or not being sold anymore. So no, it doesn't cover every catering establishment in the UK. There are some exemptions, but the basic rule of thumb is that if you are a business with 250 employees and over, then you are compliant, have to be compliant with the legislation. So that's restaurants, fast food outlets, and one to point out is franchises. So most people would say, well, I'm a single business, it's my franchise. Well, actually, franchises assume the tabletop header. So if I use the Subway analogy, if you will, where a lot of those are franchised, because Subway is the brand and everybody is selling under that brand guideline, then they have to be compliant. Cafes, takeaways, again, if it's a chain, a well-known chain, then they'd have to be compliant. Bakeries, food stores, department stores that sell food, supermarkets, the list is quite extensive as to those that are included. So businesses that are exempt are obviously all education sites, including education for over 18s, if the catering is in-house. Military establishments, judicial establishments like bail hostels, those sort of things, hospital and medical institutions, care homes, works canteens, where again, it's in-house catering, but again, if it's subcontracted catering and that contract caterer has over 250 employees, then they then have to become compliant. So it covers foods that are for immediate consumption. So that's including those that are PPDS, that famous word that we all learn to love. Food for consumption on or off the premises, and food for consumption off the premises that doesn't include further cooking. So other foods covered are those foods that are not covered by the Food Information to Consumers Act, or should I say regulations, which is an EU law that we've retained, and also food without packaging and food that is packed on request of a customer. So basically any foods that are sold as is, like fresh fruit and vegetables, unprocessed products, like single ingredients, nuts, seeds, those sorts of things. Fish, meat and cheese, they're okay, they're not covered, but a a lot of those will be covered by pre-packed legislation, unless it's obviously a deli counter or whatever and you're buying it from a deli counter. But again, unless they're added to something to make a product or a dish, then they're not compliant. Another funny one is loaves of bread and baguettes are exempt, but not bread rolls, for some strange reason. I'm sure they have their reasons. Seasonal menu additions or dishes that are on a menu for less than 30 consecutive days or 30 days within a year, they're also exempt. Off customer menu requests, so people asking for products that are perhaps on your menu but cooked a slightly different way or whatever, that their other foods are exempt. Food provided by a charity, whether it's free or for less than the price of the cost, or if it's a charity event to raise funds. Condiments that are available for consumers to add after they've ordered, they're exempt foods. However, if you put condiments onto a sandwich, for instance, or a plate of food prior to service, then they do have to be included. So an example of that would be if you ordered fish, chips and peas in a restaurant and it came with tartar sauce on the plate in a little ramekin, that would then make that inclusive of the legislation. Whereas if you had a burger van and you ordered your burger and chips, etc., and there was a tomato sauce or mayonnaise on the side for you to help yourself, then that wouldn't have to be included in the calorie count of the dish. So the main elements of the legislation are that they must display the energy and calorific values of the dish. They must define the portion size clearly. Where it's self-evident that it's a single portion, they don't have to do that. But if it was a product that, for instance, serves 3 people, then they must identify that this product serves 3 people and one portion is 250 grams, for instance, and that each portion is 293 calories. The information must be displayed clearly and at point of choice, so whether that be at the counter, in the fridge, whether it be a menu board, menu cards on the table, etc. And also it should also have the statement, adults need around 2,000 calories a day. Now that statement can't be altered. That is a statement that is fully part of the legislation. So it can't say around 2,000 calories or average 2,000 calories. It must say adults need 2,000 calories per day. So children's menus, they also have to have the calorific values on, but obviously they don't require the statement adults require 2,000 calories a day. If you have just a children's menu, then obviously that's again, they don't need that statement. Or if you have a children's section on a menu, then you would get away with not having that statement around that section, but I would actually add it to the bottom of the page, especially if you have other selections that are intended for an adult audience. There's obviously official examples that are online and also on our resource pack. So the implications for each business that fall within scope are obviously they've got to collate the data. We've already, with the PPDS, gone down the allergen and ingredient information as a requirement, but obviously this now extends to calorific values. So with all this information, you've then got the maintenance of it. How long do you keep it? When do you check it? Have your suppliers got a process for updating you when there's spec changes for a burger or a bread roll or whatever? You've also got to have the provision to display the information within your establishment. There is a part of the legislation on the calorific values that there is a tolerance level. Now this tolerance is 20% either way, which is obviously, without testing, not going to be able to be verified as such at point of inspection, so that should a EHO or TSO come in and see you. But just be mindful that there are databases out there that can be used. You've got McCann and Widdowson. You'll have the supplier data and spec sheets, and there are various automated databases that you can sign up to get all the ingredient, allergen and nutritional information from. So the main points to note are, as just going back to that 20% tolerance, that on enforcement of this legislation, they're not, the guidance is seemingly under the first year that they're not going to be sending items away for testing. You may find some authorities take a different view on that and do send stuff away, but just be mindful that you do have to be within 20% tolerance. So keeping data up to date is key, and having processes and systems in place with your supply chain partners to make sure that you've got up to date data will not only protect you, but it will protect your consumers and help you build a better trust base with those consumers. So this legislation is going to be reviewed after 5 years with a view of seeing how it worked, what the implications are, whether it's had any effect, I suppose. But also within that 5 years, the consultations will still be going on with Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, etc. Again, just go back to the main point and the main statement that adults need around 2,000 calories per day. That statement is not to be messed with. It is a feature part of the legislation. So just make sure that that's exactly what you're putting on your labels, etc. One of the main questions that I've been fielding for the last couple of weeks and in the lead up to this legislation going live is, I own a sandwich bar and I have a build your own, so I'll go back to unashamedly mentioning Subway again, going back to that franchise element where you have a basic sandwich but people can add to it. So the legislation states that you can have a core element to a product. So for instance, the bread roll, 2 slices of ham, a bit of lettuce and tomato, and that equals 327 calories. But if people wish to add more portions of cucumber, olives, etc., then you need to be able to provide the calorific values of those portions as well. So it may be prudent to have that on a display board, very handy at the point of service, the point of order, and then it's up to the consumer then to do their own maths. You don't have to do every combination of sandwich with a calorific value. Like I say, you can do a basic build. This is what it contains, this is what the calories are. Should you wish to add to it, then these are the calorific values per portion of said items. Likewise, businesses that sell meal deals, you like your supermarkets with your sandwich, your Coke, your crisps, or whatever. Again, a lot of items will come under pre-pack legislation, but if you are that franchise sandwich shop, etc., and you offer a meal deal, or you are a restaurant that offers a meal deal like a set lunch or a set menu, then you are going to have to provide the calorific values for those dishes. But again, you don't have to provide it to the nth degree. You can do a core element, and the consumer then has to make up their mind. So the main challenges, again, as we highlighted in the implications of what businesses have to do, are getting the information in, getting accurate information from your suppliers, maintaining that data, having systems and processes in place to hold, maintain, update, feed that update through to your menus, etc. So it is prudent and probably better set if you look at automation, because we've got to this point now where, especially handwriting labels, with Natasha's law, with this new out-of-home calorific values, etc. Space on labels is premium. So you are going to need a digital tool to maximise your efforts to make sure that you are compliant in these areas. So automation is probably the key for 99% of people. There are obviously lots of automated tools out there, but yeah, that would be the main challenges are making sure that you've got the correct data. Yes, so obviously the FSA have got their website. CaterCloud, we've got our own website as well, so jump on board, have a look at CaterCloud. You've also got the McCann Widdowson data set that gives you a very good range of products. There are other sites out there that you can pay to sign up to and get information from. So yeah, there's lots of places out there to get the information. It's just getting off your bum and getting there and getting it done.